Hello, our topic for this video is the planetary pair Uranus and Neptune. I'm going to describe what Uranus and Neptune do when they aspect each other, or if Uranus and Neptune are combined together in any planetary configuration such as a midpoint structure. And what Uranus and Neptune do is they bring extreme inspiration, psychic sensitivity, or mental disturbances. Essentially what happens with Uranus and Neptune is the person has this desire to experience their dreams, their fantasies, their visions, their hopes, their wishes. They want it to be alive. They want it to be electrical. Imagine a child brought up in a culture where, say, they celebrate Christmas. The child can become so excited about Christmas. The vision, the lights, the Christmas tree, the Santa Claus, or whatever images may pop into their heads, sugar plum fairies, etc. They awake, alive, inspired. The person becomes bored, becomes irritable with a dull, mundane, tedious life. Now, often we give this description to Neptune in astrology. I believe that's not a description of Neptune. That's a description of Uranus and Neptune. If Neptune combines with Saturn, you don't get that. You don't get the sizzle, the spark, the need for this electrical, awake experience of your hopes and your dreams. With Uranus and Neptune, you get the inclination to drug use, especially things like psychedelic drugs, ecstasy, these kinds of things that disrupt you from just normal consciousness and bring alive your vision, your imagination. So it's a dangerous combination, Uranus and Neptune. When I see it, I hope that the person does something that's not going to make them dysfunctional in some way. And also won't go to the opposite extreme of trying to deny the Uranus and Neptune and just live a normal, average, humdrum kind of life. So that's the narrow path that Uranus and Neptune needs to follow in order to find fulfillment. And you'll find with everything in astrology, there is a right path and a direction for those planets to express themselves, for those energies to reach their fulfillment and their momentum and the motivation and goals that they have. The astrology chart is essentially a description of how things are moving. And as astrologers, we can help people move in the direction in which that energy is trying to go. And what we're going to look at specifically in this video is Uranus and Neptune in direct midpoint structures and golden mean midpoint structures. So this is the fourth video in a series of videos on the golden mean. And the reason I'm speaking about Uranus and Neptune is because in the previous video, I think it was the previous two videos, I talked about how Uranus and Neptune are inspired. And, well, let's check out that idea. And the way that we're going to check it out, the way we're going to get some verification of it, is we're going to take extreme cases of people with Uranus and Neptune and see if they are inspired, and see if they're inclined to be psychic or delusional or drug use. So this is an extreme case sampling on what research methodologists call the dependent variable or outcome variable. We're going to take extreme people. What I did is I picked out 3 people who are very popularly known for their drug use, for psychedelic or whatever the word is you use for these things. I don't know. Drug use. They're just 3 people that popped in my head. So this is extreme case sampling on the outcome variable. And this kind of study is not as rigorous as if I used the software to find the extreme people. The reason is because you have to have a certain amount of trust in the researcher, in this case me, that I didn't also look at other charts. How rigorously did I decide what charts I'm going to look at? It's a little fuzzier. You have to have a certain amount of trust in the person that they are not really just using convenience sampling, whatever charts they happen to look at. So all 3 levels of research are important. Your personal experience with friends and family and famous people is important. We don't drop convenience sampling. That's important. middle level rigorous studies like this one, where we just think of people and check out their charts, and we stick to those people that we think of and don't just discard them, removes to some extent the selection bias that happens with convenience sampling, and then we also run through the software. So all of these are important, and this is going to also help illustrate how Uranus and Neptune function in people's charts. So the three people I thought of are Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and Jerry Garcia. This obviously reflects how old I am, that I'm an American. You know, if you're much younger or, you know, have a different cultural background, you'll probably think of three completely different people. Maybe you don't even recognize some of these names. So that doesn't matter. It should work. We should find Uranus and Neptune conspicuous. And what I found in these charts is that they're conspicuous in direct midpoint structures or golden mean midpoint structures, and that does connect us back to our theme for these 7 charts of golden mean midpoint structures. And I want to emphasize that in VA is short for vibrational astrology, which is a whole system of astrological analysis that has its own rules for what the planets mean, what planetary pairs mean, the procedure we go through for interpreting a chart. In VA, you usually will find what you expect to find. So I don't, I don't necessarily expect to find the things that we often associate with psychic experiences, let's say 12th house or just, you know, Neptune. I specifically expect Uranus and Neptune, and it works. These three people we're going to see have conspicuous Uranus and Neptune, and in the ways that we usually find them. I don't necessarily expect to find Saturn-Neptune, for example, in the charts of, let's look at these 3 names again, Timothy Leary. Well, Ram Dass, maybe more, Saturn-Neptune, because he went on a spiritual quest. A spiritual quest is more of a Saturn-Neptune approach. But all 3 of these I expect Uranus and Neptune. So Saturn-Neptune dislikes glamour and superficiality, is inclined to be cynical of the established ways, and sometimes is spiritually motivated. So among these things we associate with Neptune, Neptune's associated with psychic experiences, idealism, spirituality, fantasy, imagination, being impressionable, easily taken advantage of. Being impressionable and easily taken advantage of? No, not with Saturn-Neptune. Just the opposite. So it depends on the context of things. Uranus and Neptune is inclined to sudden inspiration, psychic experiences, delusions, extreme conspiracy theories that are way outside, you know, reality, things like that. And in the previous videos, I talked about Saturn-Uranus-Neptune, and the way I came up with the interpretation is that it's Uranus and Neptune, as part of the Saturn-Uranus-Neptune, that inclines to being inspired, visionary, or removed from a more mundane view of reality. Saturn-Uranus seeks freedom from constraints. So some astrologers believe that Saturn and Uranus is a conflict between structure and freedom. I don't see it exactly that way. What I see with Saturn-Uranus is the person wants real freedom. Real freedom means the ability to breathe, to not feel like you're imprisoned. You'll find consistently with people who have strong Saturn-Uranus combination, either in aspects or even more importantly as part of a very strong planetary pattern, usually don't like tight-fitting clothing. This gets very concrete, very specific. They want to not feel constrained. They don't become spokespeople for a alternative movement, because the alternative movement becomes its own trap, becomes its own definition. They want the freedom to experience life and respond to it honestly and clearly, and not through some prescripted set of social mores or expectations. Saturn-Neptune is critical of glamour and superficiality in the pursuit of dreams, religion, and spirituality. So they usually do not follow a standard religious path because they think it's too superficial, It has too much hypocrisy, and they seek some kind of sincere path. Women with Saturn Neptune typically don't wear a lot of makeup. So you get very specific kind of interpretation using vibrational astrology. And the Saturn-Uranus-Neptune in combination combines the effects of all of these. So Saturn-Uranus-Neptune, you can see why I associate it with a kind of disrupted psychic sensitivity, because Saturn-Uranus wants to pursue its own vision. They go off in their own little dream world. They often get absorbed, like as children, just with comic books. This stuff isn't always some big glamorous thing. Simple things. The kid loves comic books and cartoons. They go off in their own little fantasy world, or nowadays the video games, as long as they have kind of magical characters in there, fantastic characters, and they just go off so that they can do things in their own way, in their own style, in their own timing, and start and stop when they want to, and go off in their own little dream world. So one thing to keep in mind in your astrological analysis is that you don't always see these extreme cases. Doesn't mean the person is going to be, mentally disturbed because they have Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, but you will see that theme in their chart, in their lives. You're going to see that theme. Okay, so the three people I picked out are Timothy Leary, Ram Dass, and Jerry Garcia. Again, reflects how old I am, what country I live in, and that's fine. You just pick out extreme cases. Timothy Leary is well known for using and advocating the use of psychedelic drugs for therapeutic purposes. Ram Dass was a friend of Timothy Leary. They were both professors. Obviously, they got kicked out of and left their academic environments because they're so wild and crazy. So they were friends. Ram Dass became a leader in the New Age spiritual movement. And Jerry Garcia, brilliant guitarist for the group The Grateful Dead, was a drug addict. Now, I know people are fans of certain celebrities, and some people may not like that. I'm calling Jerry Garcia a drug addict, but he was. And his fellow band members talk about that. Here's an article where one of the other band members of the Grateful Dead describes how Jerry Garcia was a drug addict. So Timothy Leary, what we're going to find out, let me give you a preview to what I'm going to show you. Timothy Leary and Ram Dass have direct midpoint structures and harmonic patterns involving Uranus and Neptune, very conspicuous, very powerful, very small orbs. So the key in vibrational astrology is, what are the orbs? I have a phrase, orbs are everything. If the orb is big, it's not an overpowering effect in the person's life. If the orb is tiny, it dominates the person's life. You get 3 or more planets in a tight pattern will be the dominant thing in the person's life. That's one of the rules we use in vibrational astrology. And what we'll find in Jerry Garcia's chart is that he has a very strong harmonic pattern reinforced by a golden mean midpoint structure in the harmonic chart. So that ties us back to golden mean is important in Jerry Garcia's chart. But in this video, I'm not focusing primarily on the golden mean. I'm focusing primarily on what Uranus and Neptune mean, and it's directly relevant to this series of videos because I propose that Uranus and Neptune are the combination that leads people to these visionary motivation, visionary experiences. Okay, here's Timothy Leary's chart. It's AA data. It's from a birth certificate. And using the rules that we use for interpreting a birth chart in vibrational astrology, within 1 minute, the Uranus-Neptune stands out as one of the strongest things in his chart. This is so exciting to me because I want to be able to look at the chart and see the person. Timothy Leary, the most obvious thing about him is that he was an advocate of psychedelic drugs. He made it a whole lifestyle, like just be drugged out all the time. Richard Nixon, president during part of the time when Timothy Leary was popular, said he was the most dangerous man in America. Well, you could see why he would think that. He's saying, just be drugged out all the time. and whether you think that's good or bad, we can debate, and people get all emotional and argue about these things. But I think we all agree that's what Timothy Leary, that's the life he lived, and that's what he advocated. Within 1 minute of looking at his chart, Uranus and Neptune stand out as the most conspicuous thing, exactly what I expect. What we put a lot of emphasis on are direct midpoint structures, especially if the orb is under 15 minutes, and his Mercury is opposition the midpoint of Uranus and Neptune with a 2-minute orb, just about exact. And Uranus, before I talk about that, I've got these red lines as arrows from Uranus and Neptune to Mercury that illustrates that Mercury is in between, right at the midpoint of Uranus and Neptune. And Uranus is at the midpoint of Saturn and Neptune. Those are 3 outer planets, so slow moving would last a long time, but the orb is only 3 minutes, so it would only be there for a few days. So we have 4 planets making 2 midpoint structures. We call this in VA, I'll sometimes say VA for vibrational astrology, we call this in VA a pyramid pattern, or more specifically an opposition pyramid pattern, because the midpoints happen to be, both of them are oppositions in this case. A pyramid pattern is where one planet is at the midpoint of 2 others, and then you get another midpoint structure from the same planets. You get 2 midpoint structures from the 4 planets. So that is the very, very powerful pattern, stands out as one of the most obvious things in his chart, that he is an extremely Uranus-Neptune person. Now, we can go beyond saying that he's an extreme Uranus and Neptune person to a very more specific interpretation. And one of the ways we do that is when you have a direct midpoint structure, as we have here. Let's take the Mercury between Uranus and Neptune. That, of course, means that the Mercury-Neptune angular distance is the same as the Mercury-Uranus angular distance. Well, what is that angle? What if it's 72 degrees, 1/5, or also called a quintile? Then this whole Mercury-Uranus-Neptune, not only does it mean that he thinks and associates ideas in a visionary, inspired, way out of the box manner, but it would be creative and playful. It would incline to the arts, to visionary arts, to theater, to poetry, any kind of creative expression of this tremendous imagination. If it's in 7th harmonic, if these are 1/7 or 2/7 of a circle, then it's inclined to be abstract and deep and ponderous. If it's an 11th harmonic, watch out. 11th harmonic is unstable, and then we're really concerned about the person going off the rails, becoming psychically unstable. If it's 13th harmonic, it's interested in transformation, in going beyond the norm. People that have spiritual gurus or want to get something special, unique, have heroes and ideas of going beyond. Uranus and Neptune in 13th harmonic is often this sense that we can become angelic or transform to some other level. So we want to know what vibration it's in to get the specific meaning. So in vibrational astrology, we have a set of rules to come up with specific interpretations, and we have software tools to help us. So I'll show you how we find what vibration these midpoints are in. So after we see that there's a direct midpoint structure, we find out what vibration they're in. So for Timothy Leary, I have his chart wheel up here. First I would select midpoints. And if I go to view change settings first, I have certain settings. I'm looking at just conjunctions and oppositions with a 1.5-degree orb. If I go to advanced settings, I have golden ratio midpoint structure selected. Let's just unselect that for now. I'll click OK, just so we see just the direct midpoint structures. Click OK again, and we see here the Mercury opposition Uranus-Neptune with a 2-minute orb, Uranus opposition Saturn-Neptune with a 3-minute orb. this is very small in the captured screen, but in the real program it's easy to read. And I just saved this to file, cut and paste these midpoint structures and pasted them into a chart wheel that I saved to file, and that's how I create this slide. I just have a chart wheel that I saved. I pasted those on here, and I put some text in here as well. But what I want to show you is how we find out what vibration this Mercury-Uranus-Neptune is in, and the Uranus-Saturn-Neptune. And we have a feature for that. You go to Listings, Harmonic Patterns Listings, and then number 8. So Listings, Harmonic Patterns Listings, and then number 8. And what this will do is it will look at, let's go back to our chart wheel. It will look at what this angle is. What is this angular distance from 13 Leo 35 to 22 Scorpio 43? Is it a seventh of a circle, 2/7? Is it a ninth? Is it an 11th? Find out what fraction they are. See if this fraction, this is also within an orb of that that aspect. And if all three are, then it's in that harmonic. Harmonic would mean the denominator. And when we do this, we get this result. I'll highlight this section. We find that the Mercury opposition Uranus and Neptune, see if I can highlight this better. There we go. Mercury opposition Uranus-Neptune with the 2-minute orb is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 harmonics. Now that may shock you. Like, how could it be in 5 harmonics? But it is. So this is one of the things that happens in vibrational astrology. Is its 29th harmonic, which is a prime. Its 40th, which is based on 5 times 8. It's 69, which is based on 23. 98, which is based on 7 times 7. 7 times 7 times 2. And 1/27th, which is prime. So what I'm saying is that this midpoint structure has all of these vibrations to it. And what I do is I will pull up the charts of the ones that I know how to interpret, and let's look at, for example, the 40th and the 98th harmonic. And what I can do is I can pull up the 5th harmonic chart, and these planets, Mercury and Uranus, Neptune, will appear as 8th harmonic charts. So this factoring will also show us that in the 5th harmonic chart, these will be 8th harmonic aspects. In the 8th harmonic chart, there'll be 5th harmonic aspects. And in the 7 times 7 harmonic, we'll see some oppositions. So let's look at the 5th harmonic chart. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. This may be a lot to absorb. But if you can watch this video a few times, it's actually very, very simple. We're just seeing what aspects these angular distances are. And when we look at his 5th harmonic chart, here it is. I just pull up his 5th harmonic chart and save it to file, and then I put these lines in here to demonstrate what's going on. There it is. Mercury, Uranus, and Neptune are connected together. It's shown here in the actual chart wheel as well. I just drew it bigger and brighter to help stand it up, but there it is with the aspect lines drawn in. And the lines are pretty thick, means it's a very tight pattern. And Saturn is also involved. So it's actually Mercury, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn. Well, there's the Saturn, Uranus, Neptune by coincidence that we talked about in the previous videos. So we're getting this very inspired, disturbed Saturn, Uranus, sincere Saturn, Neptune. So we're expecting him to have this playful creativity. And what happens in this case is that the 5th harmonic really dislikes the daily routine. And reading about Timothy Leary, just reading the biography of him in Wikipedia, for example, this is exactly what he experienced. He talked about how his train ride to work every day, that life, of just 9 to 5 kind of lifestyle, and the dreariness of it drove him crazy. He talks about this, and he just couldn't take it anymore. And I believe if he didn't have such a dull routine life, that he might not have had to go to such an extreme to break out of it. It just built up and built up and built up to where he needed to get a more inspiring magical life, and pushed him over the edge. So you want people to follow their bliss, follow their path, and you can see the path of what's fulfilling and exciting in the chart, and any kind of dreary, mundane life, even what's not dreary and mundane to 99% of the population, will be to him. So looking at his chart, we know he's going to break out of this. Now here's his 49th harmonic chart. 49 is 7 times 7. It's extremely abstract, extremely, well, let's just call it abstract. It's often involved in like abstract paradigms. And that's also what happened. We see here, by the way, Mercury at 2 Sagittarius, opposition Uranus and Neptune at 3 and 5 Gemini, with the orbs that we use in vibrational astrology. This is very strong. And Saturn's involved again. So he has Mercury, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune in a 5 vibration and a 49 vibration, which means it's playful and abstract. So we can, in vibrational astrology, get very specific interpretations. And here's a quote from the Wikipedia article on Timothy Leary. Quote, in the late 1960s and early 1970s, Leary formulated his 8th circuit model of consciousness in collaboration with writer Brian Barrett, in which he wrote that the human mind and nervous system consisted of 7 circuits which produce 7 levels of consciousness when activated. Wow, this is 49th harmonic stuff. There are 7 circuits. Did he ever see these circuits? This is what 49th harmonic does. It's very inclined to these abstract paradigms. Okay, produce 7 levels of consciousness when activated. This model was first published in his short essay, The 7 Tongues of God. The system was soon expanded to include an 8th circuit in a revised version, first published in the 1973 pamphlet, Neurologic. Well, first of all, he's just way out there. Second of all, this is creative, inventive stuff. And third of all, it's extremely abstract. So using this kind of analysis, we know where the person is headed in their life and what kinds of things they're going to do. We know who's going to be inclined to these kinds of abstract, way out of the box paradigms that they develop and get interested in. So the midpoint structures identify the key interests and motivations of Timothy Leary. The vibration of the midpoint structures describe the details of his interests. What I think is really exciting about this is that we're developing a system of astrology that gets confirmed through controlled research. When we apply it with actual people, we see what we expect to see. We see the major themes in the person's life described. And we can go into more detail, but this is our main point here is just that the Uranus-Neptune shows up conspicuous as we expected and in the way that we expected it to be. Now, Ram Dass, friend of Timothy Leary, also uses psychedelic drugs, then pursues a path that emphasizes spirituality more. We only have a B accuracy from a biography for Ram Dass, means nobody's put their hands on the actual birth certificate or seen a copy of it. And what we find out in Ram Dass's chart is that he has Neptune opposition the Saturn-Uranus midpoint in his chart. So here's Neptune at 3 Virgo, Uranus at 15 Aries, Saturn at 22 Capricorn. You can never see these things just by looking at the chart, but we bring up the midpoint structures and it shows us Neptune opposition Saturn-Uranus 39-minute orb. Now that by itself, excuse me, is not going to make somebody who takes psychedelic drugs and goes off to India and with a guru and all of this stuff. Because it's 3 outer planets with over half a degree orb, it just means that they're interested in way out things. They have an interest in it, they're open to it, they're not closed to it, they find it interesting and entertaining. A lot of people do. In VA, we see exactly what's going on and how important it is. So why is this a bigger part of his life than just a mild interest? Well, one reason is because he has Sun conjunct Uranus, and Neptune is also at Sun Saturn, but that's a 54-minute orb. So getting an inner planet, the Sun involved in this, strengthens it, makes it a little more personal, makes it something he might want to work on, have an interest in these things, but it's still not to the extreme that it's in his life. We do the same listing that we did here for Timothy Leary to find out what vibration these are in. We find out it's 13th harmonic, and in his 13th harmonic chart, he has Neptune. Well, this is the part of spirit, part of fortune and part of spirit. We're not interested in that right now. It moves extremely fast, so we don't even know if it's really there. But he has Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Sun all within 13 degrees. We allow a 13-degree orb, so he has a 13 vibration. So 13 vibration inclines the person to be transformative, to want to go to a new level. When the harmonic is in 5th harmonic, it's playful. 7th harmonic, it's disciplined and abstract. 9th harmonic, it's community-oriented. 11th harmonic, very unstable. When you get Uranus and Neptune in 11th harmonic, you're very concerned about the person becoming delusional or heavy drug use, etc. 13th harmonic, often interested in transformation, going to heaven, becoming self-realized, developing capabilities beyond the normal level that humans think that they're capable of. And that's exactly what Ram Dass does with these 4 planets in 13th harmonic. And I have done charts of gurus and people into transformation, and just to illustrate the idea, this isn't like some big evidence to show that this theory is right, but just as an example, to illustrate it, here is a guru, Amrit Desai, and this is birth data that he gave to me from him. He said it was fine for me to publish it. He said it was from his birth certificate. And so here's his chart. This is his birth chart. And in his birth chart, he also has Neptune opposition Saturn-Uranus with a 31-minute orb, has the same midpoint structure with about the same orb that Ram Dass has. They were born a year and a half apart. So what happened is that a year and a half later, Neptune moves into this same pattern with Saturn and Uranus, because over a year or two, these outer planet patterns can form and reform as the planets go retrograde and direct. And here's the 13th harmonic chart of Amrit Desai, and we see again an inner planet, and this spreading 11 degrees. Oh, and by the way, midpoint structures in the harmonic chart are important. And I think I forgot to mention that in the harmonic chart of Ram Dass, Uranus is at Saturn-Neptune 16-minute orb. It's also at Sun-Neptune 26-minute orb. Midpoint structures in the harmonic chart are important. This is what makes it extremely strong for Ram Dass. The midpoint structure in the harmonic chart, combining with a 4th planet, the 2 midpoint structures under half a degree orb in the 13th harmonic. Now we found Ram Dass. So we have very specific rules to see how strong these things are. And so Amrit Desai, we end up also with 13th harmonic, following a lineage. He has his lineage of gurus for transformation to become self-realized. And I believe the Saturn-Uranus here are at the Venus-Neptune midpoint as well. Well, anyway, you've got the idea. We're seeing Saturn-Uranus-Neptune, that combination of planets that pushes people outside the normal frame of reference in the vibration of self-transformation. Shows up very commonly in the charts of people on a path of transformation through a guru, for example, to become enlightened. Becomes the focus of the person's life. I just find this stuff so exciting. We can really see what's going on, these frequencies and vibrations in the person's life describing what's going on. Okay, our last example, Jerry Garcia. And here we see the golden mean midpoint structure. And what's fascinating to me is that I had seen this pattern in the 11th harmonic chart of Jerry Garcia before, but I was still not happy with it because it didn't explain why he's as extreme as he is. Well, let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the 11th harmonic chart of Jerry Garcia. We do have AA accuracy for Jerry Garcia, by the way, as we do for Timothy Leary. And in his 11th harmonic chart, Jerry Garcia has a Sun-Uranus conjunction, opposition a Moon-Neptune conjunction. This is what I expect. Uranus and Neptune in 11th harmonic, extremely electric, restless. He's in a rock and roll group using drugs. It's exactly what we expect, but I was never completely happy with this because the orbs are too big. The Uranus-Neptune is, essentially, well, it's almost out of orb. We allow an 8-degree orb. The Sun-Neptune is very exact, 6 degrees and 7 degrees. The whole thing spreads. The Sun and Moon are involved. That's good. 6-degree orb. So I would think that this person, when I look at this chart, yes, they're inspired. Yes, they might use drugs. Yes, they're going to love rock and roll, but not to the extreme of Jerry Garcia. To go to that extreme, to be living this life 100%, not just a sideline, not just one thing he does sometimes. It's not like he goes to a rock concert and uses drugs once a month. This is his whole life. The orbs should be stronger. And I was amazed when I pulled up the midpoint structures using this new insight into golden mean, which I didn't have when I looked at his chart in the past. I actually have a video on Jerry Garcia and other rock and roll people. He has this Saturn-Uranus-Neptune golden mean midpoint structure, 0.32. Anything less than 0.50 is there. That strengthens the whole thing. Saturn-Uranus-Neptune is the most disturbed, out of the box, out of the norm, out of normal mundane reality combination. Saturn-Uranus-Neptune means it's instinctive, it's natural. The person just lives that way. This is just how he lives. So that reinforcing of getting Saturn involved with Uranus and Neptune in the golden mean midpoint structure makes it strong enough that now I feel, yes, I found Jerry Garcia. So this is how we work in vibrational astrology, is we don't always find exactly what we're looking for with exactly the orbs that we expect. We have very rigorous criteria for what we're expecting to see. And then here we have a new insight into golden mean midpoint structures just in the last 3 to 4 months. This is, our research has brought this out. We found it doing our baseball batting research that we're doing, and then the other research that I showed in these videos to confirm these things. There it is. The golden mean midpoint structure helps fill out the missing piece of the puzzle for me for understanding Jerry Garcia in the 11th harmonic chart, exactly where we expect it for a rock musician. It's just very fascinating. So conclusions from this video. Timothy Leary's chart is a dramatic example of A, the power of midpoint structures in the natal chart, and B, the inclination of Uranus and Neptune to extreme inspiration, psychic sensitivity, and in his case, drug use. And the 13th harmonic charts of Ram Dass and Amrit Desai illustrate how Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune in the 13th harmonic, especially when also in a direct midpoint structure in the natal chart, how they work to pursue a path of transformation and in their case, enlightenment, some form of transformation and going beyond the norm. That's what 13 is about. Not to be just an average, everyday person or life, but to move beyond that. And Jerry Garcia's chart illustrates the importance of golden mean midpoint structures in harmonic charts. So as I've mentioned in one of the previous videos in this series, this is the 4th one of 7, our research, our studies, our work with clients, our work with looking at extreme charts is bringing us to a whole new way of doing astrology, way, way beyond what we ever imagined would happen. Okay, so that's it, my friends, to illustrate that. In these next videos, we're going to talk about the golden pyramid and the golden isotrap. very, very important patterns of 4 planets in the golden mean. So thank you very, very much for listening. I appreciate it if you subscribe. Just by subscribing, you're supporting. Doesn't cost you any money, not much time. It supports us. The more subscribers we have, the more people that like our videos. It promotes the videos. The search engines notice these things, brings them up into people's attention, and the more people that watch it, the more support we get, so we can keep making these videos. And the way we pay for all this is that we do have software. That we have free software, and we also have software that we sell. So everybody's got to have a roof over their head. So we're doing a lot of free things, and also some things that we charge for. And the Kepler and Sirius astrology software is made by Cosmic Patterns, and the website for Cosmic Patterns software is www.astrosoftware.com. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.